In this first video, we'll be going over logging into WordPress and using the WP admin dashboard to take care of members and other tasks. First thing is to put in the address for your website, and typically you'll follow that by WP-admin. So once you type in the web address and press enter, you'll be taken to the login screen. Simply enter your username and your password. If you're a new member, you should have received an email with your username and password, or an administrator for your website should have shared that with you. If not, check back with them. Once logged in, you'll be taken to your WordPress dashboard, where you can see the menu along the left-hand side and whatever you're actively working on in the center. In this instance, we're on the dashboard, home, and you can see here the different blocks that are loaded by plugins and other utilities within WordPress. Under the dashboard, you'll see an important area called updates. It's important to keep up to date with your plugins and the WordPress version. However, it's also important to remember that every time you update something, to check your website and make sure that all the functionality is working. You can view pages, you can use forms, and so on. To make updates, you simply go in, and if it's a WordPress update, it'll tell you to do a backup of your site first, and then you'll see the options to check WordPress and update. Same with plugins. If there are plugins to update, they'll show up here in the same manner that themes have shown up here. Simply click a checkbox by what you want to update and click update. For plugins and WordPress, the buttons will be in those respective areas. When updating, WordPress will temporarily put the site in maintenance mode, meaning if someone comes to your web address, they'll receive a message saying the site is currently in maintenance mode, check back later. So if you have updates that are going to take a long time, or you're worried about interrupting your customers, make sure and do updates at a time that is outside of your normal hours of operation. Once it's done, you are given the option to go to the themes page or go back to the WordPress updates. And if we go back to WordPress updates, now we can see that everything has been updated. The next thing we want to cover here is user management. User management can be found under users, all users. And from here, you'll see everyone that's a user on your website and what their role is, as well as what their email address, name, and so on. To edit a user, you simply go mouse over the user's name and click on edit, or you can click on view to view their information on a web page. If you use, say, profiles and whatnot, that will show their profile page. If you're creating a new user, you click add new. In the instance of creating a new user or editing an existing user, the majority of the blocks that you see will be the same. Let's look at editing a user first, though, so we can see what you can't change, so you understand what's important to get right the first time. So I click edit, and in here, you'll see options. Visual editor, that's disable visual editor when writing. That's talking about creating blog posts and pages. Same with syntax highlighting, admin theme color. These are just personal options in terms of how your layout is going to look, all the way up to toolbar. So keyboard shortcuts, toolbar, admin color scheme, syntax highlighting, visual editor are all personal preferences for the user. You can typically leave those alone. The important part is down here, the username. Once you create a username, you cannot change the username. So it's important to get the username right the first time. Everything else can be changed on the fly. So for example, you can see here we didn't put in Kevin's first name, so Kevin. And then the nickname could be whatever they like to be called, if their first and last name is different. Also, if you're showing authors on pages or profiles, you'll want to get their public name display selected, which lets you, if you click the drop down, it gives you a few options, which is typically first name, first name, or first name only, last name only. Then email address, if they have a website. For bios, again, for writers and things like that, you'll want to put their biographical info so that if someone clicks on their profile, it shows their information. Also for your staff and users, if you're going, or staff and employees. If you're going to be showing them and displaying them on the website, using their profile is one way to do that. You would put their biographical information here. And then they can have their profile picture changed using Gravatar. What you would do is have your employee or the person you're creating an account for go to Gravatar, create an account, they upload their profile picture, then they can use that Gravatar on multiple websites. There are plugins if you wish to just make it native to WordPress. There are plugins that you can get that will allow you to create a profile and add a profile within WordPress. There's numerous plugins to do this. Next thing is you set the password. If you're editing an existing user, you'll see that their password is already set, and you can click set the new password. We'll look in a minute at creating a new user and how passwords are handled there, though. Sessions, if they're logged in multiple locations, you'll see that here, and you can log them out of all locations. Then there are other things, application passwords, in other words, like logging in with Facebook, logging in with Google. That's what this option is here. And this option and these last two options are specific to a plugin we have installed called WordFence, which is the security plugin. So sometimes plugins will add additional things to profiles that you don't normally see. And here's an example of that with WordFence security. WordFence also allows you to create a two-factor authentication. In other words, where the person logs in with their password and then it sends them a text message with a number to verify. Once you've made any changes you're going to make, you click Update Profile, and it'll show a message at the top saying that the profile is updated. It's important to note at this point that the layout of WordPress for most of your menu interactions in the admin are going to look just like this. Your navigation is going to be on the left. When you get in, you'll have information, typically more navigation either on the left-hand side or across the top, with the elements and information that you can change being in the center part of the screen. In the menu on the left-hand side, click Add New User, and then once it comes up, you'll see that it's a little bit of an easier screen to deal with. It doesn't give you all the personal preference information, and it cuts straight to here's the details we need specifically for a person. So you can put in their username, email address, first and last name, a website if they have one, and then you can either have it automatically generate a password for you, or you can enter a password. The important next step is send the user a notification about their account, right? So this will send them an email telling them give them a link, to WP admin, as well as showing them what their username, password, and other information is. Finally, you have role. Roles can be used differently on different websites, so a lot of this is based on how your WordPress is set up. So for example, a subscriber, let's think of this in terms of a blog or a newsletter. If this is a blog, people can subscribe to the blog so that when you make updates, they can receive notifications that it's updated. They can comment and interact on the site. A contributor is one level above that. It's a subscriber who writes content, and they can create, post, and submit stories, but those stories would have to be approved by an editor, and they're very limited on what they can do. Contributor and author are very similar in that they're both contributing and creating content. However, the author is given a higher level of permission throughout the site for different aspects of the site. And that would be something for another video specific to, say, writing posts and submissions for authors and contributors. The editor would be the person set to curate and approve any content created by the subscriber, the contributor, or the author. Because in the settings, you can set up whether the subscribers, contributors, and authors, what their capabilities and roles are. In other words, can subscribers post comments to posts, or is that turned off? And finally, administrator has access to all aspects of the WordPress install. Sometimes with different plugins, you'll see a different set of roles here because those can be expanded upon. For example, I have an educational site where we have teachers, directors, and assistants that are a little bit different than the roles here based on what they're doing in the educational system. So as with updating an existing user, when you add a new user, once everything is in here, you click Add New User. One note, it says here that username and email are all that's required for adding a new user. Well, you actually need username, email, and password. So On the fly, if you need to quickly get someone up and they're going to put their information in later, you need at minimum to put in their username, their email, and their password. Once you click submit, you've created that new user. All right, that concludes this session of WordPress training. And in the session, we went over logging into the WP admin, what the dashboard looks like, how updates work, and creating new users. For any questions, please reach out. We're always happy to help.